Welcome back, my lovely, lovely listeners. I hope you guys are doing all fantastic. I'm doing great. Today's video is going to be the first of a multi-part series. I believe there are 8 total parts to this series. This will be the first of 8. And this story is titled, My Hotel Has a 13th Floor. And it is by the fantastic Paintosinclair / DuckyLuck89. Both those usernames have been used by him before, but I think we're going to go with Paintosinclair from here on out, because that's what I think his current username is. Yeah, so this is the first of 8 stories. And I am super excited to read this. So I hope you guys are strapped in. This is part 1. Part 2 will come in the near future. Part 8 will... that's kind of far out there. But the point is, I hope you guys are ready, because this is My Hotel Has a 13th Floor by Paintosinclair. Enjoy. So for those unfamiliar with how hotels work, it's generally 3 8-hour shifts. I work the overnight shift, the graveyard. I've been here for nearly 6 years now, and will tell you the same thing I tell new hires. I've seen some shit. Some weird and wild shit. A good rule of thumb is when something weird happens, keep your head down and leave it alone. This, of course, leads each of us to have stories to tell. Now, before you start thinking of a creepy old haunted hotel, I want to dispel that. I work for one of the biggest names in the world, in a relatively new hotel. It's about 15 years old, and not haunted. Probably. I suppose dumping one of the best stories first is the best way to go. So, the 13th floor it is. So way back when I was in training, 2 days to make sure you understand how to click a few buttons, was the first time that I had heard about it. You're gonna want to stay off the 13th floor, bro. My trainer, a guy in his 30s, Derek, who looked like he survived solely on energy drinks, had told me. I, of course, looked at him like he was the biggest idiot alive, but he stared back at me stoically. I may not remember jack shit from training, but I'll never forget the seriousness in that look. See, the thing is, my hotel has 3 floors, not counting the 13th. I brushed it off at the time as nonsense, not yet being experienced in the hotel's weirdness. Derek just shrugged and went about his explanation. Take the elevator, he said. The elevator never lands on the 13th. The stairs will, though. Sometimes if you're going up, sometimes if you're going down. He finished, handing me a bundle of receipts. We offer an express checkout where we slip your receipt under the door so you can bounce at your own convenience. Derek never brought up the 13th floor or any of the other weird occurrences. Though, it would have been nice for him to warn me about the vending machine at the end of the hall. In any case, after training, I never saw him again. I heard he moved to Alaska or something. Since then, I've been completely on my own 5 nights a week. Save for when I myself get a new little bird to teach. They usually don't last too long. I remember it was my first week alone, when my first 13th floor related incident occurred. Nothing dramatic or anything. I had heard the sound of rubbing metal followed by a wet plop sound. I had been fucking around with a sketch at the front desk when this happened. I recognized the sound immediately as the laundry chute. Problem was, it was 3 in the morning, and housekeeping had locked the chutes hours before I had even arrived 4 hours before. Our front desk is connected to the laundry room, so with my curiosity aroused, I stepped around the wall where I could see the chute opening. Laying there, half pouring over the edge like a lolling tongue was a large towel covered in some brown stains. Could have been blood, could have been shit, could have been any number of things. People are generally disgusting. I turned and brought my eyes to the computer monitor that had housed the camera feeds. 9 smaller screens embedded in a large one. Recording kicks in if they spot any movement, and I have to admit I wasn't surprised to see none were recording. Now this was, like I said, almost 6 years ago, so I can't remember for sure what I did, but knowing me, I probably ignored it. A not my job attitude. I know, it sounds dickish, but they don't pay me that much. I do remember checking the back a few hours later, only to find the towel had vanished. Again, I kept to myself. I thought maybe my brain was adapting to night shift and was fucking with me. I don't drink energy drinks or coffee, so staying awake was a battle of sheer will back in those days. That was the first time that it happened. It has happened many, many times since then. And not always a towel. Oh no. It happens a few times a week at least. Some of my favorite items to come down have been a dog leash, eyeglasses, and get this, a full chess set, one piece at a time. Those are a few of the interesting trinkets. Most of the time it's hotel stuff. Towels, blankets, pillows. Sometimes they have the brown stains, sometimes a bright red coat that most definitely is blood. They always disappear without a trace after a few hours of sitting there. So, that's the laundry chute. One of the few 13th floor events. Another is the camera system. We have 3 set up on each floor. Row 1 covers the first floor, pool area, and front desk. I can always look up and get a reminder that my boss doesn't completely trust me with the $300 in the drawer. Row 2 shows, well, floor 2 and the stairwell. Row 3 shows the same for the 3rd floor. This is what is shown 99% of the time, but on the rare occasion all 9 will switch to static for a second and clear to show a darker hallway, lit only by faint lights at each end. Every door on this floor stands wide open. I've never been able to make out anything else due to the awful lighting and even worse quality of the cameras. They switch back after exactly 2 seconds anyways. Another thing that happens much less often is a phone call. The ringer says it's coming from within the hotel, but the room ID stays completely blank. I don't answer these anymore, but I did before. It was always the same. An old man apparently residing in room 1302, which we of course do not have, croaking out that he can't get the weird guy off the TV and asking if I could come and fix it for him. He would then do a baby doll giggle and hang up. It was my 2nd year that I actually managed to land on the 13th floor, which is not nearly easy. That year, I happened to be on a fitness kick and had opted to take the stairs instead of the elevator. I know what you're all thinking, but Derek's warning had been 2 years prior, and the weirdness of this hotel had become so routine that I honestly didn't even think about what he had said about the stairs. Not to mention that I had been taking them for months without incident up to this point. I had finished delivering receipts on the 3rd floor and began my descent. I arrived at the ground floor, pushed open the door to reveal a darkened hallway resembling the 2nd and 3rd floor. Except instead of our shitty floral pattern wallpaper, the walls were lined with newspaper. It was too dark and I was too confused to attempt to read what they said. I turned around only to see that the door previously leading to the stairs now only mirrored the dark hallway. Nervously, I slowly took steps toward the center, where the elevator was located. I could hear a constant sound of wind rushing through the entire floor, but felt nothing as I reached out to press the down arrow. It lit up after my input, but simultaneously I heard every door, infinite doors, creaking open. I felt the wind now licking my face as if I stood atop a skyscraper. I turned and glared into the room directly across the elevator, pressing my back into the cold metal door. Inside, I saw that the window was open, curtains that didn't match my hotel's brand billowing in the strong wind lit by the glow of the TV. The man on the TV stared back at me, and I saw that he was no man at all, but rather a wooden puppet. His square jaw and lipless mouth seemed to have a permanent, sinister smile fixed on it. His black eyes, lifeless, rolled to the left side of its face to make up to the angle the television was sitting at. His red swirly hair, freckles, the suit he wore, and the desk he was sat upon reminded me of a twisted, demented puppet version of Conan O'Brien. He darted his eyes to the bed in the center of the room as if to say, "Hey, look at this!" before returning his gaze to me and rapidly raising and lowering his wooden eyebrows. On the bed, under the blanket, I could see a lump vaguely shaped like a human, and to make matters worse, it was beginning to stir. Just as the thing in the bed sat upright, the blanket still covering it completely, the elevator pinged and I stumbled backward into it. I flailed my hand to the button reading 1 and I pressed that fucker at least 10 million times. Just as the elevator door was closing, I gave the puppet one more look. He shot me a wink just as a huge humanoid silhouette stepped into the doorframe. I couldn't see more as the elevator had fully closed a nanosecond later and began a descent that took so much longer than it ever had. I fully expected it to open back up onto the 13th floor where that thing would grab me, but it didn't. I finally reached the 1st floor, and it was the same 1st floor it had always been. I've made it absolutely crucial that I take the elevator every single time that I have to go upstairs now. That's the story of the 13th floor. We occasionally have guests disappear, their stuff still in their rooms when checkout time comes. I think all the employees know, we just don't talk about it. So it feels good to get this off my chest. I may be back to share some of the other weird things that go on here, but I'm gonna go for now though. Something just came down the chute, and it sounded big. So that was the first part of the 13th Floor series, and I hope you guys are all looking forward to the rest, because I know I sure as hell am. I loved that story. That was a fantastic setup, and I am so excited to see how it goes from here. So one more huge thank you to Painto Presents for letting me narrate this story and series. He's a fantastic author. Check their stuff out. Honestly, they have their own subreddit, and they post a lot of their stuff. Just beautiful work. Beautifully done. Fantastic author. That all said, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know that you liked it. Also, if you really enjoy my narrations, please do consider subscribing to my channel, because that helps me grow and it helps me continue doing this. Lastly, if you really, really wanted to, you could leave me a comment letting me know how you're doing and just letting me know what you thought of the story. That would, help me a lot too. I love to hear from people, and I would love to converse with you on anything you want. Anything except for the 13th floor. Let's not talk about that. Let's finish the story before we talk about that further. Down in the description, you'll find links to this story as well as the subreddit for Painto. You'll also find links for my personal subreddit, my Twitter, and my Facebook, and a page where you can submit your own story to me so I can read it on my channel if you have a story for me to read. I would love to do so. One last thing to throw in here, Painto does have a novel that he wanted me to plug, and I'm more than happy to do so. The name of the novel is Slappy's Diner. Obviously, Painto's name is probably Dustin Bragg. I'm going to guess. Just saying. Anyway, it's called Slappy's Diner. It is on Amazon as both a Kindle and paperback, and it is available down in the description. I have a link to it. Please check it out. Please support this man's authorship. He is a fantastic writer, and I would love to see him grow, and I would love to see Slappy's Diner on the bestsellers list. I would love to see it knowing that I promoted it in its early times, honestly. Thank you, Dustin/Painto, and yeah. That all said, I hope you have a fantastic day. I will see you on the next video, and until then, I hope that you sleep well.